Hey, what is up everybody? Blaze for here. Today I have for you guys another video of Persona 5X, but with a little bit of a twist. So I hinted a couple times throughout the week that we're going to be having a little bit of a collab. So I have someone joining me today named MintJoy. MintJoy, you want to say hi?
Hey, how you doing? Nice to see you all.
Alrighty, nice to see you as well. We've been talking about this throughout the week a little bit, and we finally got together to get this on. And as many of you guys can see by the title, it's going to be a little bit of a pros and cons video. But MintJoy, you've been playing the game on and off, right? Pretty decent?
Yeah, pretty much. Like initially when the game first released and stuff in the Chinese servers, I did actually play it. I even went on as far as to make a little review on it. Be sure to check that out. But ever since I released that review, I haven't really been up to date, at least in terms of playing the game itself. I have heard of the latest update, 2.0. It looks amazing. I played a little bit of it, not too much, but yeah, I've been pretty on and off about the game, mostly because it's just such a great game, and I'm more than happy to share my thoughts on it.
That's good. That's good. Because I definitely wanted to get someone on here who was like kind of against gotchas, but also likes them somewhat. As long as it's with this persona, at least I'll say likes them for this case, at least here, in which having a little bit of some pros and cons thoughts would be really nice, because myself, I do have a few cons with the game, but I wanted to get a little bit of another idea here. So did you want to start off with the pros, or did you want to start off with cons? Anything's up to you for that.
I can try to name a couple pros and then some cons, whatever works for you, really.
Everything's all good with me, so let's go ahead and get started on that.
All right, well, I got quite a few pros right here, because honestly, let's start off with a pretty simple one. Overall, one thing about me is I love P5 as an entire brand and identity for the Persona franchise. I played over 150 hours of P5 Royal. I played over 100 hours of Persona 5 Strikers, around 40-ish hours of Tactica, and I got I'd say 30-ish, maybe more hours on P5X. What I really like about P5X specifically is that it just has a great story. I love the little twists and turns it does to what's already established and what we know about Persona 5's overall logistics and rules of its world building. Some of my favorite Phantom Thief designs in the entire franchise of Persona 5 as a whole come from P5X. We got Katone, we got Closer, Soy. They're just so unique. I almost feel like they're a little more committed to do the whole gentleman thief aesthetic that they mentioned before back in P5's developments.
Yeah, kind of more fleshed out, you would think, on certain characters.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of characters that, even on using a translator, of course, for the whole, the game itself, I was able to understand what they're trying to do, and it's amazing. It's such a cool concept, this idea of basically having the will to do what you desire and all that stuff. It's the same concepts as P5, but sort of better elaborated on, or in a different direction, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, it's kind of in a different light, where some of the characters are now able to pursue those said desires more than the other characters that we got to see in the original P5, which was actually very nice to see that they did something like that. With the streams that we've been doing, is things like that as well. A lot of people kind of agree that some of the characters are really well written, as well as even the villains, or the so-called villains. I'm in P5, certain villains just felt they just had problems for no reason. But when we had a look into P5X villains as well, they kind of feel a little bit more fleshed out. There's more of a reason for them. There's more of an issue of why or what's happening in said palace, to how they're being like this. So I kind of like that as well when it does come down to it.
Oh, true. Yeah, absolutely. The villains themselves, biggest pro in my opinion. Really, when you look at Persona 5, the villains, I get what they're trying to do. They want to have this just antagonist that's, just outright evil and you're supposed to change their heart, that's fine and all, but P5X takes it a step further and really just fleshes them out. It sort of makes the whole changing your heart thing a lot more of a gray sort of action, like how they elaborated on in the latter half of P5, which is really cool. Let me see.
Yeah, I think that was really nice to do. I ain't gonna spoil anything about the new palaces, of course, because there's people out there who have not gotten to the new palaces and things like that. But of course, brand new palace was really, really nice as well, how they're doing that. But when it does come down to some of the pro side as well, how would you say overall is the gacha standpoint? Because a lot of people are very much so looking for pros and cons when it comes to the gacha standpoint, in which does this game feel more like a gacha or does it feel more like P5 in general?
When you first play the game, it really does actually feel like an actual P5 game, and that's sort of how I was going to look at it as, and that's how I sort of look at it more as an actual P5 game rather than a gacha. In terms of the gacha itself, like what it does, it definitely has that vibe of living in a post-Genshin world. I make a lot of comparisons to this game to Genshin specifically because I feel like that game alone really built like an entire structure for a lot of gacha games to pursue on. Like you got the whole artifact system, you got the pity system, where it's like, you got a 50-50 chance of getting a 5-star. Like these are all things that are most well known from that game itself. And I feel like that's both a good and bad thing. Like, yes, it does make the game a little more engaging. There are like, it does bring in more players and they get to stay more consistently for the game. But for me, as someone who doesn't really like gacha games that much, it sort of turns me off a lot from the game itself because, I mean, it's just kind of annoying. You have like all of these characters with different element systems. You kind of need to get every single one of them if you want to enjoy the game to the fullest. So it's kind of, it kind of sucks, but I can see what they were trying to do, and I can understand why they had to go with this kind of direction.
Yeah, I got that, at least that question as well, or that answer a little bit as well from some of the viewers and things like that as well. One of the few things I was trying to also elaborate on with this, or trying to convey to some people when it did come down to the pros and cons of this game as a gacha, is I feel like in this one, they do a good job of saying there are characters that are skippable, and that kind of, it doesn't make you want to have to pull for everyone besides the DPSers. Those are the ones that are a little bit of an issue, that a lot of people might have a problem with this gacha as well. But they do kind of a good job when it comes down to at least spreading those DPSers out. And when we look at it as a game that also DPS kind of, you need one for at least one element, or every element at least. There are certain characters that can go out that are like 4 stars that are also really, really well. And I'm glad that they did that, and seeing that they're actually buffing characters and things like that as well. It kind of brings more of that whole feeling of a necessary needing of pulls and stuff like that. It kind of brings that, or mellows it out, right? I'm unsure if it's just me thing or like a couple others, like I was talking with this way as well. We feel like it got mellowed out a little bit. It's still there, of course, where you want to pull for everything, right? But I feel like as well, it's kind of getting mellowed out. How would you feel on that though?
I mean, yeah, definitely. The game does feel very free-to-play friendly. Like, if you're just playing for like the main palaces and the side content, not really so much like the different events and stuff, it's very free-to-play friendly. I've been able to like play through the game with Katone as my main DPS, and she's like a 4-star you can get very easily. I definitely do completely agree with that. Like, they're sort of trying to iron out a lot of those of that necessity of basically pulling for the 5 stars every time. Like, for example, I didn't really pull for, I forgot her name, but you know, the little video game character, Yui, yeah, just forgot her name. I didn't pull for her. I heard that she was pretty broken, but I was still able to beat the game pretty easily with like closer and other like ZO characters.
Yeah, which is the good part, because I feel like when it comes down to things like this, that can be a little bit of a deal breaker for people, especially if you feel like you need this character to complete certain things. Because we can take Velvet Trials for an example here. If you're not doing the ranking one, which, let's be honest, if you're doing ranking, we know what you're getting into for that. But for example, the actual trials type deal where you get the free currency and stuff like that, you can kind of try to use some of the 4-stars, which are like DPSs, sub DPSs, stuff like that, and get through those pretty far. Like, I know when it comes down to the Fire Velvet Trials, which I did a video on that recently, one of the things I really enjoyed as a pro for the game was I could use about 2 4-stars and a free 5-star that we got, which was from Picker, which was on. I ended up getting on out of there. You can just use them, and I was just storming through most of the stages, which is really nice. It didn't make me feel like, oh gosh, they need to hurry up and come out with a fire 5-star, and I gotta get that no matter what. It kind of gives you that sense of relief that even if they came out with a certain character, you can kind of work around it by having other free-to-play units or free-to-play options.
Yeah, pretty much, really.
Which I definitely do like, but since we went over a few bit of pros, let's play a little bit of devil's advocate. What's the cons of the games here?
Oh, all right. Well, let's see here. So, even though I said that I really like the palaces, I'd even go as far as to say I kind of prefer them over Royal and Vanilla. That's I don't know how much of a hot take that is, but it's just they're objectively better in a lot of aspects. They are admittedly very long. For example, when I was doing the second palace, I had to actually take a break because it was just taking forever. Not to mention when they got into mentioning the artifacts, I just didn't want to continue at that point. So palaces as a whole, they're very long. That may be a good thing for a lot of people, but for me, as someone who likes to finish palaces relatively quickly and just get to a boss fight and stuff, it is sort of a tedious thing. Not to mention you got like a bunch of other stuff you can like explore around in, and for completionists that can also be like a little bit of a con.
Oh gosh, no, that I feel that big time, because especially when it comes down, when you say completionist, I couldn't help but grin, because I say that to everybody that goes into the streams and things like that as well. It's like, as a completionist, I hate that I have to do a lot of things like that, and it takes so long. Now, I'm also one of the people who likes to read majority of the story as well, no matter what. And so I think it took me 3 hours or 2 hours for 2 days straight or 3 days straight of just streaming to get through the third palace's story. Right?
Oh,
3 hours each stream, or 2 hours each stream, because I'm interacting with them. I'm trying to get past some of the content. I'm looking for stuff. I'm also reading all the story. And that was just 2 hours for 3 days, because I was like, I'm not going to do this without you guys. Y'all kind of want to look at this. And I can kind of agree. It's a little bit much. I like that it's a lot, but I also don't like that it's a lot. You know what I'm saying? It's a little bit of a...
Yeah, it's a bit too much.
It's a little too much at times. So I can get if that's a huge con, or that's a con for some people as well. Now I'm gonna mention one here, and this one might be a huge con for a lot of people. But how do you feel about the upgrading talents / also just leveling system for the game? Do you feel like it's too much, it's overwhelming, or anything like that?
I mean, I don't think it's that bad. I can see the concern, but I mean, a lot of gacha games already do this kind of stuff, so I'm sort of half used to it. But seeing this in like P5X specifically, it can be a little too much. Like upgrading the talents for every single one of your characters, it is tedious. Like, it requires a lot of grinding, and that's another point I'll get into later. But basically, yeah, upgrading the talents, I don't mind leveling up the characters. That's completely fine. But like doing the talents and all that stuff for their persona, that can be tedious. Not to mention, like, if I remember correctly, you kind of also have to do it for Wander's case. No, he has the little skill tree. Never mind. Yeah.
Wonder is a whole different book of grinding than the actual annoyance, because that more coincides with the personas as well, because that's a whole different thing that
pretty much.
I haven't even done fully.
Yeah, but like
it's a huge headache.
But yeah, like that entire aspect of leveling up, like those certain things, not to mention the weapons. Like there's a lot of stuff you do have to take into consideration if you want like an actually good unit. Like I said, Katoni is like my best character, but that's really because I'm putting most of my resources into her. So it's very resource, like it just wastes a lot of resources. So I definitely do understand that point of view.
Okay. And let's go with, you know what, because I want to kind of balance out a little bit of the pros as well with the cons. Let's do at least one more con before we wrap it up as well. Is there anything like, or actually one or two, however many you want to kind of throw out here? Is there anything else that's like kind of pet peeves or different cons of the games that you feel needs to be either tuned a little bit or might be a problem for newer players who are kind of coming over?
For new players, I can definitely say that it can be a little overwhelming at first, like how many things there are, because I recently tried out the update after like a little while, and I got pretty overwhelmed by how many new events and stuff there was. I do understand that there was a point in time in between the updates that there wasn't a lot of content going on, like not too many updates. But even then, like I play the game pretty casually, so for me at least, sometimes the game can feel like there's a bit too much going on. Like you got the palaces, you got the Velvet Trials, you got the grinding in their little domain things, you got the Door of Nightmares, the events, the collabs. Like there's so much to keep track of. Keep in mind, like I said, I'm like not exactly reading this off like through official means. I'm using a translator, so I have to like take my time and understand what every single thing is, or else I'm going to be confused and probably make a few mistakes along the way. So for new players, that's probably the biggest con out of P5X in my opinion.
Okay. Nothing too hard though. Nothing too bad there, which is really good that you pointed that out as well. Seeing one of the things I did want to mention when it did come down to this as well is, let's say it comes to the global side, which we do know it's going to be coming over to the global side. Once it does, we're going to be getting the console version as well. I want to know, for anyone who's waiting in the West, right? Would you recommend this? Like, do you feel like it's too much for a person on the West, like who are waiting for it? Do you think it's going to be an issue? Are there any cons that would go for that per se, or no?
No. If anything, I'd strongly recommend anyone who's like a Persona fan to at least give this game a try, because I guess I can wrap this up as a little pro. P5X is a very, very ambitious gacha game, or mobile game in general. Like, I played a ton of gacha games, Azure Lane, Blue Archive, Genshin Impact, plenty. But of all of them, I feel like P5X is probably one of the best that I've ever seen, simply because of how ambitious the whole idea is. It's pretty much like its own take on P5. It's not scaled down nor scaled up. It's like its own idea, its own direction for what it wants to be. And that's amazing. I'd strongly suggest this game for anyone who likes gacha games, let alone Persona.
Okay, and that's why I was wondering, because a lot of people were kind of iffy on playing the game, because it's like it's a gacha at the end of the day. And I'll be honest with you, 100%, whenever I hear a gacha for a lot of games, even if I like them, it does give me that little bit of a frown look for a second, because of the negative connotation that gachas usually bring, right? We all know why they're made. We all know exactly what they want from us, to be honest. And they will take the best IPs that we might love and, you know, usually do them wrong, or either just absolutely be baiting for money. So they usually bring a huge negative connotation. So seeing that this one is somewhat doing things I would like to say in a right light, it's really good to hear from another person as well who doesn't really like gotchas that often. It's good to hear that this one's somewhat doing things right, which I like to hear that as well with this. Before I go ahead and wrap this up, I said the last thing was going to be, that was it pretty much, but one of the things I did want to know, if you could pinpoint anything that you want them to do better, what would it be?
Oh, okay. Just thinking for a moment. Like, this one is
Had to throw a curveball for a second.
I'd say just keep up with like doing more updates, because I really do want to see more support in this game. Like I said earlier, there's been a point in time where a lot of people have finished pretty much everything the game had to offer, so it was kind of in a content drought for a bit. I really do feel like they should try and like spread out a little bit of their updates, what they're going to add, a little nicer, rather than just making one giant update that takes like a good few months to release, you know?
Yeah, that's understandable there as well. There's small things that they end up adding in between, but that's definitely something I kind of agree with as well. That they could do definitely a little bit better. But other than that, thank you, Minty, for actually joining me today for this video. I know it was kind of out of the blue. I didn't know that you did a collab recently. When I messaged that, and I was just like, you know, I think it's time to see if we can get a person on for a collab. Well, who's better than someone who can kind of like going back and forth with me with this one? So sorry about that, just like lining this up back to back with you.
Nah, it's fine. Anytime, really.
All right, but if anything, you guys, of course, be sure to check out Minty's channel as well. I'll have their channel in the description, and will we see you for like Global's release when that happens, or?
Who knows? Maybe I'll make another video looking back a year later, maybe seeing if they've done anything in the global release. We'll see. Only a matter of time.
All right, I'd like to hear that as well. But once again, thank you for joining me today. You guys, I'll take care.